Tampa Bay has so much to offer, and the lifestyle options here are almost limitless. Two of the most popular surrounding cities located just outside of Tampa Bay are Clearwater and St. Petersburg, Florida. Now, if you're considering moving to the area, you might be thinking to yourself, well, which is the best one to move to? Well, if this is your question and you're trying to make a firm decision on which is best for you, you've come to the right place. Be sure to stay tuned until the very end because I'm actually going to give you my personal opinion and insights as I've lived and worked closely to both areas for over 2 decades now. And maybe I can just help you pick the one that's the best city for you. Now let's get into it. I'm going to walk you through the main differences between Clearwater and St. Petersburg. We'll talk about the downtown attractions, the cost of living, schools, airports, real estate options, and yes, even the concerns and risks that you should know about when considering both locations. Now let's talk a little bit about location and vibe. Clearwater and St. Petersburg are both in Pinellas County, right on Florida's Gulf Coast, but they feel very different. St. Petersburg is bordered by Tampa Bay to the east and the Gulf of Mexico to the west. It's a little more urban, more walkable, and has a real city feel to it. It's filled with art galleries, trendy restaurants, rooftop bars, and live events every weekend. It also has an amazing waterfront downtown marina. Clearwater, on the other hand, is best known for its world-class beach. It's a little more residential, more relaxed, and it has that vacationer tourist vibe, if you know what I mean. And that population there reflects that. Clearwater has more retirees, vacation homeowners, snowbirds, and St. Pete tends to attract full-time residents, younger professionals, burgeoning families, and artists. Now, both Clearwater and St. Petersburg have large, well-planned, retirement-oriented developments for people 55 and older. And I'd have to give Clearwater the edge in that category. So if you're looking for nightlife, events, walkability, St. Pete might be your best bet. But if you want peaceful neighborhoods, a little more space between your neighbor and yourself, and residential, that real residential feel, Clearwater might be the clear winner for you. If you're looking for information about living in the Tampa Bay area, the positives, the negatives, and everything in between, please like and subscribe so that you can get all of my latest and most relevant videos. I can guarantee you'll learn something that you didn't know. Now, I get calls, texts, emails, and Zoom meeting invites from people just like you looking to make a move to the Tampa Bay area. Now, whether you're planning on making your move in 9 days or 90 days, whether your move is across the world, from outside the state, or maybe just across town, shoot me a text or an email and let's set up a Zoom meeting. Our team is standing by to make sure that your move is everything you want it to be. Now, let's get into the cost of living differences. Clearwater is slightly more affordable than St. Petersburg from a cost of living perspective. The difference between living in Clearwater and living in St. Petersburg is a whopping 1.3%, with the least expensive being St. Petersburg. The median home price in Clearwater is about $375,000. In St. Pete, the average home is closer to about $435,000. Utilities, groceries, and healthcare in Clearwater also tends to run below the national average. St. Petersburg, especially downtown, has a slightly higher price average for dining, entertainment, and transportation. So if you're looking to stretch your dollar, Clearwater gives you more for your money, but if you value location and lifestyle, St. Pete might just justify the added expense. Over the past 15 years, there's been an explosion of growth in real estate options in the city, with luxury high-rises making up the bulk of the new construction within a 10 square block area. With 2 downtown areas, both cities being 37 minutes apart, you'll have the option to actually go between the areas as frequently as needed, which can be a real benefit. For instance, I have a customer that really enjoys the St. Pete Farmers Market because of the high quality produce that's available there. She doesn't mind the commute and makes a day of it by taking advantage of the many museums, restaurants, retail shops, coffee hangouts, and art galleries that are just a half an hour away. Now let's move on to population and demographics. So, who lives in these cities? Clearwater has more permanent retirees, vacation homeowners, and part-time residents. As you're getting acquainted with the area, you'll actually notice that many of the people that you bump into and talk to in the area aren't really native to Tampa Bay. In fact, many of them are from the Northeast, California, maybe even Canada. It has a quieter rhythm and more seasonal activity, while St. Petersburg is more consistent year-round population. You'll find young professionals, entrepreneurs, artists, and tech workers. The vibe is a bit more fast-paced and diverse, and maybe I would consider future focused. So one thing that you'll hear about the area if you haven't already is we have a thing called snowbirds. And no, it's not like birds with snow on their wings. Snowbirds are actually described as people who venture to the area to get out of the cold of the Northeast or Canada, and they travel here seasonally. So you'll notice an uptick in traffic, especially in the Clearwater area, that you really won't see in St. Petersburg between the months of October and April. And then once we get deep into the spring, those folks leave. You'll notice the change in traffic. So the traffic gets really heavy in October when it's cold up north, and then in the summers when it gets really uncomfortable here in the area, they go back north. So you will notice you'll have longer wait times at restaurants to see shows and in malls and that sort of thing. So you just have to be patient and be aware if you do happen to notice that difference in traffic and wait times. Time to talk about schools. Now, St. Petersburg offers more charter and magnet school options close to downtown. Schools like Gibbs High School and Perkins Elementary focus on arts and performance. Private schools like Shorecrest Prep are also very popular in the area. In Clearwater, you'll find more traditional public schools with strong community involvement. Some options include Plum Elementary, Clearwater High School, and Calvary Christian. So here's the breakdown. St. Petersburg gives you educational variety and magnet programs. Clearwater offers stability, structure, and a more family-oriented environment. Honestly, I have clients that live in both areas, and a few of them have opted for private schools to fill the educational gaps in areas that they saw deficits in. So the point is you have options. You just need to be aware of what they are. Now, let's talk about travel access. Both cities have access to two major airports. The first is St. Pete Clearwater International, which is actually closer to Clearwater. It's great for domestic flights and budget travel. The second is Tampa International Airport. That's one of the best rated airports in the country. It's just 25 to 30 minutes from both cities. St. Pete has slightly better access via Interstate 275. Now, since both Clearwater and St. Petersburg are less than 45 minutes from Tampa International, you really can't go wrong with either location. So no matter which city you choose, you'll have reliable airport access from either city. Now let's go over the real estate in both markets. Condos with marina views starting in the 600 range. You can actually find them a little bit cheaper, around the 550 to 600 range. You also have historic neighborhood Kenwood that offer bungalows in the 4 to 600K range. Luxury waterfront homes in Old Northeast and Coffee Pot neighborhoods in the north of the downtown area. In Clearwater, on the other hand, you have single family homes starting in the 350s, around 650 to 700, with luxury options exceeding $1.5 million. For seasonal residents, you have the 55 plus communities that run you anywhere from 250 to 300,000 and up. Those are generally going to be 55 plus communities, smaller homes that are maintenance free. So if you're looking for something a little cheaper, that might work for you as long as you meet the age requirement. So I have another video on the next two things that I'm going to talk about within the real estate market in both areas, but let's go ahead and touch on them now. So you have waterfront and you have non-waterfront properties. And when you're looking at those two properties, what you have to remember from a value standpoint, money flows towards water. So the closer your property is to water, the more it's going to cost to maintain that property with insurance and upkeep, and also the higher the value. So you just remember, if you're looking for something as an investment and you're looking for a greater appreciation over time, being close to water is going to give you that luxury. The other thing that I wanted to mention to you would be the pros and cons of homeowners. So many people hear about HOAs and they just cringe. They hear this and we talk about it often. HOAs can be helpful, and let me explain. So most people have common sense, meaning you wouldn't do something to your property that's going to necessarily jeopardize your value. But I had a customer about 3 years ago that decided that they were going to paint their home bright purple. I'm not kidding you. This was like the most horrendous purple you can imagine, the super bright purple. Now, most of the homes in the community were, your basic colors, your shades of lighter brown, shades of, softer blues, cream colors, your very basic low tone colors that blend in within a community. So what that does is that actually, in a sense, can bring down property value, and you have to be careful with that. And that's why homeowners associations are so important, because they control things like that. It makes sure that there's uniformity across the community. And so when you go to sell your house and your neighbor down the street sells their house, they sell within a comparable price range because the values are steady and high across the board. So be mindful of that. Obviously, we can have a deeper conversation about that if you have questions, and I can go into a deeper explanation. So it's finally time to talk a little bit about risks and concerns. Both cities are coastal and flat, so yes, they're both vulnerable to hurricanes and flooding. Certain areas in downtown St. Pete and Clearwater Beach are high-risk flood zones. I'll help you find the areas that are least risky and connect you with insurance professionals that can help you with insurance options that are best suited for your residential real estate needs. During peak tourist season, Clearwater Beach can get really congested. So think packed beaches, long wait times, heavy traffic. Downtown Clearwater does have a public trolley, and that helps a little bit. In St. Petersburg, that gets busy too. The downtown area definitely gets busy, but the city is very well laid out based on walkability and parking options. The key is to make sure that you time everything with regards to when you need to get to where you need to get to. So in other words, I wouldn't necessarily head to the downtown areas of either Clearwater or St. Petersburg unless it was kind of off times. I wouldn't do it, between 3:25 and 6 o'clock in the evenings, Monday through Friday, and I certainly wouldn't do it in the morning commute hours between about 6:50 and 8:50 a.m. One thing that I want to focus on is the flood risks. So obviously, watching the news lately, you've seen, hurricanes as they come through the Florida area, which they always have. They produce lots of wind and even more water at times. So when you're here in the Clearwater and or St. Petersburg area, to include Tampa Bay as a whole, what you'll notice if you're not from here is that you'll notice that in many neighborhoods, you'll see these ponds, these small little lakes, and those are man-made. Many of them are man-made. They're actually put there and designed so that when we have rain, that rain produces runoff water. And so that water collects in these ponds, and they actually have flow-through valves usually between ponds in areas so that they can move water from place to place based on how full they are. And those help to mitigate the risk of flooding in the area. Now, don't get me wrong, if we have a hurricane that parks itself over Florida and stalls out or moves over Florida very slowly over a 2 to 3 day period, dumping inches of water, per hour on us, we're going to experience flooding. Any area would experience that. But I think what I'm trying to say here is that most of the area they planned well. And if you have the conversation with your flood insurance provider and flood insurance professional, you can go through and that professional is going to help you decide which policy works best based on the amount of risk that you're going to incur in a certain area. And again, we can have that conversation. I'll definitely let you know where the most flood prone areas are. So you finally made it to the end. Which one is right for you? Which city would you choose? If you want beach life, affordability, and calm, maybe Clearwater is calling your name. If you want nightlife, art, and downtown energy, maybe a home on the marina overlooking the boats as they come in, maybe St. Pete could be your next move. If you're still unsure, I can help you figure it all out. In my opinion, both are really fantastic options, and it really just depends on your lifestyle preferences. Some of my best customers will initially select Clearwater because they want to be closer to Clearwater Beach, only to decide a few short years later that extra 25-minute drive from St. Pete downtown over to St. Pete Beach isn't really so bad after all. Now, the next step is to schedule a Zoom call and talk with me about your goals, your lifestyle, and your budget. All the information is in the link below. I have my details there. Call, text, email. Let's have a conversation about what your needs, plans, and goals are so that I can get you on the track to ownership in either St. Pete or Clearwater. Let's talk.